This video was made in support of this family. Right now, Fathy and their family are in an impossible situation, but you can help by donating. And if you can't donate, you could still help by sending it to somebody who can. You'll find the link to their GoFundMe in the description. Thank you. Hi, I'm Firebug with 2 eyes, kind of, and this is the story about how my art class tried to unionize against our teacher. There was a time on YouTube where every single YouTube artist had an art teacher story to tell, and it usually went along the lines of, guys, my art teacher doesn't like anime, and she won't even grade my projects. Aren't art teachers meant to inspire? She's literally killing my art motivation. So I made this video to let you know that if your art teacher doesn't let you draw anime, that just means that you're a real artist. I was addicted to these videos. So in 2019, when I took my first art class, I thought I knew what I was getting into. Obviously, I was not prepared enough. Originally, I wasn't even planning on taking an art class in high school. At that point, I have been drawing for most of my life, and I thought I might have had the gist of it already. An Art 1 class just didn't seem very appealing to me. I'm not saying that I thought I knew everything, but I knew that everyone else was going to be taking the class as an easy elective, and being around that was going to really annoy me, so I just joined art club and called it a day. That way, I had access to the art supplies and access to other people who also liked art, including the art teacher. Now, I'll be honest, when I first met her, I was really skeptical. I was just remembering all of the art teacher story times that I'd watched. And I don't even draw anime, but I just figured that any art teacher that my crummy school managed to get was gonna be too underpaid and too tired to actually be nice to us. But I was wrong, and she was really nice. I'm gonna call her Mrs. Hill. Me and my friends actually spent a lot of our lunches in Mrs. Hill's class, even though we weren't technically taking any art classes. She looked at our artworks and sketchbooks, and she gave us a lot of advice and compliments. She even took some of our paintings to the local art hop, even though she did spell my name wrong, but that's okay. One day, she told us that she was interested in starting an AP art class. And of course, I had already seen Conan Gray's AP art portfolio video, so I wanted in. But if you don't know what an AP art class is, let me just explain it to you real fast. An AP class is basically just a college class that you take in high school. You study a lot for an exam that's at the end of the year, and if you get a 4 or 5 on it, you get college credits. But in AP art, instead of an exam, you actually turn in a portfolio that gets graded. Throughout the school year, you make like 15 to 25 artworks and put them into 3 categories: breadth, sustained investigation, and concentration. And the best part was that you get to pick what your portfolio is about. So AP art is just a class where you have access to almost any art supplies, and you can just paint whatever you want. And that's when Mrs. Hill mentioned that she didn't even know if she was gonna have enough students for the class next year. So that year, me and my friends became recruiters. If we had ever seen you draw a realistic eye, an unrealistic eye, or just a cool S in the corner of your papers, you were going to be hearing from us. And eventually, we recruited enough people to join art class the next year. Though it wasn't that hard, because an art class where you can draw whatever you want is pretty appealing. So as soon as we had enough people, we immediately went and told Mrs. Hill. She was excited, we were excited, we were talking, and Mrs. Hill asked us when we had taken Art 1 because we weren't in any of her classes. My friends had taken Art 1 in middle school, but I happily told Mrs. Hill that I had never taken an art class before, thinking that she would be impressed or something. But she actually got really serious, and she told us that Art 1 was a required class for AP art. So I just helped create a class that I couldn't even join, but I wasn't giving up. The only way to take AP art the next year was if I took Art 1 for summer school. So I did, and it was actually really fun. I learned the art fundamentals with a bunch of other students that were also trying to take AP art, as well as a few seniors that just needed the elective credits, but they were chill too. But even if they weren't, it was all gonna be worth it because we were gonna have a class where we can make whatever art we want. Or so we thought. The first day of AP art finally came, and Mrs. Hill announced to all of us that we were going to make our portfolios about resilience. Huh? What? We figured that this is probably just a backup topic that we can use if our topics ended up not working out. But then she dimmed the lights and she turned on the projector and she played us a documentary about human trafficking. And that's what our first assignment had to be about. Immediately, we started asking her questions. We wanted to know when we were going to be able to discuss our own topics and just make our own assignments. And she told us that we were welcome to do that whenever we wanted, as long as our topics align with resilience and as long as our paintings align with her assignments. Now, how does that make any sense? At the time, we just pretended to understand and just went on. We finished the human trafficking assignment and figured that the next few would leave a little bit more wiggle room for us. But they never did. They were very specific assignments. Some assignments assignments were as simple as just scribble a line and color the spaces in between, and others were to interview somebody that we thought was resilient and make a scribble portrait of them. And don't worry if you don't have anybody to interview, because she was gonna bring in public speakers. Every so often we would have a person come into our class and talk about gang violence, domestic abuse, sex trafficking again, and they would be there presenting for 1.5 hours of the 2-hour class that we had. And we weren't allowed to work on our projects while the public speaker was there. For one, it was just rude. Given the topics that they were talking about, to just ignore them was extremely disrespectful. But we were also getting graded on our participation. We got more points if we were actively listening to them and asking them questions. And no offense to the speakers, they are clearly very, very resilient, but I was getting annoyed. And so were a lot of other students. Not only was the topic of resilience decided for us, but a lot of the assignments had the requirements of a certain style, certain medium, even a certain subject. And if we didn't meet those requirements, we were going to get a worse grade. At this point, a few students had already dropped out. The class just wasn't at all how we thought it was going to be. And in a way, I felt responsible because I told all the students that we were going to be able to make whatever art we wanted. But it was October already, and all we had so far was art that we didn't even like. And most of us didn't even have our own topics. Anytime we tried to talk about our own topics, it was shut down to make more room for resilience. But for some reason, I thought that everything here was just a miscommunication. I thought that maybe she was just used to more students with less drive and less ideas. I just wanted to let her know that it was okay for her to be less strict on our projects, that we were artists and that we had ideas too. And that seemed to annoy her. She got defensive and asked me what my topic was going to be about, if not about resilience. And I got a little bit embarrassed because I only had a vague idea of my topic. I told her that I wanted to make art exploring beauty standards and body dysmorphia using body horror. And she told me that that was fine as long as I twisted it towards resilience. What is this lady's obsession with resilience? Oh my god. I just flat out told her that there was no way I could twist her assignments into my topic at all. And then she told me that I didn't need to use her assignments for my portfolio. And there's a second where I'm thinking, oh, okay, I don't need to do her assignments because they're not for my portfolio. I can just do my own assignments and turn them in, and I'll work on my portfolio while getting a good grade, right? Then she corrects me and tells me no. You have to do my assignments and also do your own projects. So in order to get a good grade in the class and make the portfolio that I was planning, I need to do double the work. So I asked her, when am I supposed to do all these projects if I don't even have enough time in her class to do her assignments? And guess what she tells me? Oh my god, guess what she tells me? She tells me that I'm supposed to do them at home. And to just give you guys a little bit more context of the situation, AP Art is my 5th AP class. The only class that I didn't have AP in was English. So I have all this extra work, extra homework, extra assignments, and she's telling me to do double the work for her class at home. At this point, I'm heartbroken. I thought me and Mrs. Hill were cool. I thought we were friends. She put my art in art hub. I thought she was gonna lead me to new opportunities, and I was one of her favorite students. So I knew if this is how she was treating me, the other students were fucked. I really cared about this class, not only for my portfolio but for the other students. So I felt like I needed to fix this, so I had to ask for help. I went to my favorite teacher, Mrs. Miller. She was my AP computer science teacher and she was awesome. I trusted her the most to have the right advice about this. I told her the whole situation, and her advice about it was basically, damn, that sucks. That was it. She said that since it's Mrs. Hill's first year doing AP Art, that she might still be figuring out her teaching style. And to be honest, I'm not sure what I was really expecting. Like for her to talk to Mrs. Hill herself, to make a report or something. So that was just a dead end, I guess. I just need to ask somebody else for help. So I went to my high school counselor. We're gonna call him Mr. Counselor because I'm running out of ideas, okay? So I go to Mr. Counselor and I tell him everything about how the class is supposed to work, how the portfolios work, how she's doing it so ineffectively, and that if it keeps on going this way, we're all gonna either fail the class or fail the portfolio. And when I finish, Mr. Counselor offers to schedule a meeting between me and Mrs. Hill with a mediator to see if we could talk through our issues with each other, as if my issues are with her are personal. And I try to tell him that it isn't a personal issue between me and her, that she actually used to be one of my favorite teachers, but the way that the class is going right now isn't good for anybody. But he just didn't seem to understand. or even care, really. So I leave and nothing got solved at all. So I figure, okay, I just need to ask another adult for help. And this time I go to my parents. And again, I tell them the whole situation. And they just tell me that I just need to focus on my grades, to forget about the portfolio, to stop arguing with my teacher and just focus on graduating. And at the time, I just remembered feeling so hopeless and small. I felt like a whiny kid complaining about a mean teacher. Like the things that I cared about didn't actually matter to anybody else. But they did matter. To the other students, at least. They were in the same boat as me. At this point, APR already had a group chat where we complained about Mrs. Hill. And over again, we talked about how we should just not do any of her assignments and just do our own work. And what would she even do to stop it, right? She can't fail us all. She can't fail us all. Even though we were miserable in the class, Mrs. Hill would always brag about us to the other teachers and even to the other students. She was just so proud to have an AP art class in general, and she would just show off our art all the time. It's like our art was an extension of her. She would show off our paintings and be like, wow, my students, they are so deep. They are so insightful and creative, when the whole thing is an assignment that she created. So with the pride that she has, we figured that if we all just didn't do her assignments, she wouldn't be able to take that. And so she would pass us anyway, because how would it make sense if we turned in good portfolios without doing her assignments? Surely she would have to take credit for that too. The plan made sense in our little 16-year-old brains, but we realized that it was December at this point, and most of us didn't even have our own topics other than resilience. So we tried to teach each other and give each other assignments. We had bigger discussions about what we wanted our topics to be about, sent pictures of our sketches and tried to send each other ideas, talked about our inspirations and how we can incorporate them into our own portfolio. Together, we basically did Mrs. Hill's job. While talking with the other students, I learned about more things that Mrs. Hill had done. She apparently talked badly about our art behind our backs. To her, any art style that wasn't hyper-realism wasn't real art. She apparently drew over other people's art during corrections. I had a friend in there that really liked using watercolor, but Mrs. Hill specifically told her to stop using watercolor so much. And I understand branching out a little bit more, but it just feels like she has a problem with whatever ideas we have. We were slowly but surely making our own portfolios, but a few assignments went by and our grades really took a hit. Some people decided to actually do her assignments with their own, and others just decided to do her assignments by themselves, abandoning their own portfolios entirely. And even though I understood why they did it, it still frustrated me. The whole idea was that she can't fail all of us, but if we weren't all in it, then she could just fail a few of us. But a lot of us kept going, but we were really running out of time. It was March and she had already caught on to us. One day we went into class and our chairs were aligned in a circle, meaning we were gonna have a class meeting. But we had prepared for this. In the group chat, I told them specifically to ask certain questions when she eventually had us have a class meeting like this. Like, why does it matter if we don't do our assignments if we're getting our portfolio done? That isn't it against the rules for her to tell us what to make? And if she asked us what we were doing, just tell her that we're working on our portfolio. As long as we stood together, she needed to back down, right? But then the meeting started, and it was only me and a few other students that were actually doing the plan. And I don't really blame them, because we're all just anxious art kids. I'm also scared of confrontation, and I remember my heart beating so fast in that meeting. But I did it anyway because I felt like I needed to. This wasn't how the class was supposed to go. Why was she able to do this? We needed to tell her no. So in that meeting, 3 students, including me, did that. We told her that we weren't going to be doing her assignments, and apparently that was enough to make her cry. And at that point, everything just felt lost. The union was done. The people who were by my side were already falling back. And looking back, I remember having very mixed emotions, because on one hand, of course, I feel guilty for making her cry, you know? But then I remembered all the things that she'd done. How she specifically made her class my way or the highway. She's made other students cry before. She talks behind students' backs and says that their drawings aren't real art. So I feel bad because I'm not evil, but she's also not a saint. So in that meeting, nothing really was resolved either. It was just a bad situation. It didn't feel like anything was progress at all. I regretted creating the class, starting the class, everything. It wasn't worth it, and it sucks. I can't look at anybody else's AP art because I just feel bitter. And I just wanted it to be over. I didn't want to go to the class anymore or work on my own projects, but I needed to graduate, so that just wasn't an option. But it was Friday, March 13th, 2020, and I decided that next Monday I was just gonna do her assignments. But that turned out to be our last day of school because of the 2020 pandemic. Everyone ended up passing the class anyway, and it didn't even matter. We still had the option of turning in our portfolios, but I'm pretty sure everyone in the class gave up. I remember Mrs. Hill tried to reach me through email about turning my portfolio, and I just ignored her until she called my mom, to which my mom told her to stop calling us. Cause it was all done. The school year is over. Why is she still bothering me? So yeah, that's how we tried to unionize against our teacher. It didn't really go to plan, but I mean, at least she didn't win. I go back and forth about how I feel about the whole thing, because I don't think that she's evil, you know? But at the same time, why was she fighting with a bunch of 16-year-olds? In fact, what was wrong with all of the adults in this situation? Why was I allowed to take 5 AP classes? Do not take any AP classes. They're not worth it. I remember telling my counselor multiple times that I was going to end myself, and he asked me why I wasn't taking AP English. I specifically remember him saying, you could handle it, right? When I had tears in my eyes. I'm not sure if the school got paid more if you took more AP classes or not, but like, it was crazy. You guys are gonna have to let me know what you think of the whole situation and what you think I should have done. I used to feel pretty guilty because I felt like I was maybe going a bit overboard, but in the making of this video, I looked it up and her teaching style was specifically not allowed in this class. Looking back, I wish we just sent an email to the college board and see what happens from there. Actually, no, I was a child. I wish that any of the adults that I talked to sent an email to the college board and let it go from there. If you were in the situation though, would you have joined the union? Would you have just done her projects? Would you have done both at the same time? If I could go back, I think I would have just taken ceramics instead.